We are going to call to order the Lake Mills City Council meeting for October 15th, 2019. Could I get the roll call, please?
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Mr. Foster?
Here.
Mr. Fritsch?
Here.
Ms. Schmidt?
Here.
All right, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So we actually have two sets of minutes, and I don't think there's any reason why we can't do them both as one item unless anybody else sees a reason we need to split them apart. If you see a reason that we need to split them apart, let me know. Otherwise, I'll take a motion to approve both sets of minutes for the October 1st work session and the October 1st regular session.
So
of the
moved.
City Council. Okay, we got a motion, second?
Second.
And let's call the roll.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Abstain.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Motion passed 3-0.
All right, that moves us into correspondence. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up? Go ahead, Mr. Fields.
I received a call and several emails on the sirens not working out at Brookstone during the storm. I've also received some email correspondence on the garbage pickup that they'd like us to see to go back to the regular third week of the month. That is, people don't like the way it looks out on Main Street especially. I forwarded an email off to Steve also that there's a report out in Brookstone on a tractor that was run around and somebody was taking pictures off of it. And then the other thing was I attended the WPPI orientation this morning, so I went to that also.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? So I also got the one about the tractor,
Okay.
or the backhoe, and the
Sirens?
sirens. So, yeah, I did contact Steve, and there's been some work done on it, and there's been a lot of work done on it, and I don't know if it's right, but Steve, you want to mention anything right now about the siren?
Can I do it during my city manager's report?
We'll do that.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right, if there's no other correspondence, we will go into questions and public comments. The public is encouraged to address the council at this time regarding items on the agenda. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, you are asked to hold your comments till the hearing. We don't have any public hearings this evening. Public comment may also be made at this time on items that are not on the agenda if you have registered with the city clerk before the meeting has been called to order. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the council on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes and state your name and address when starting your comments and fill out the sign-in sheet provided. Is there anybody that has correspondence? Seeing none, we will close questions and comments, and we'll move into the city manager's report. Steve, it's on you.
So you received the September 2019 check register, the September 19 PD monthly report, and the Jefferson County Economic Development Committee's budget info from the county. We are having the town fire contract meeting next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. They've been sent the information. The siren at Brookstone and on the fire department There's some debate as to the antennas and the interference being received by the antennas, so we're having general communication come out and do some checking on that. The one at Brookstone also might have a fuse problem, blew a breaker, I should say, so we're going to have that checked into too. The contractor who is installing the electric at Brookstone, which is Pro Electric, was trying to get the addresses of the homes that they were going to be digging along. And so they asked the foreman on site to do it, and he opted to do it by driving his backhoe down the road and videotaping the houses. So their manager contacted the property owner and let them know what the issue was. South Main Street, they did some asphalt work today. They are working on the grading and seeding and the power poles, or not the power poles, the streetlights. And then they'll start putting in the signs. They're going to start striping and sealing the cracks here in the next couple days. So we anticipate that next week might be our last meeting for South Main Street until next year. I anticipate we may have a few cleanup items. I know there are some manhole issues still outstanding. I know that the prime contractor, the general contractor for the job, would like to be able to have partial acceptance of phases 1, 2, and 3. And that would require those manholes to be fixed. And so I'm not sure where that'll end up, because if it's not, then he's responsible for any damage that occurs over the wintertime. I know he's not crazy about that. Mulberry Street got paved. Most of it is contract. I should say the first layer, so the binder is down. Next Monday, roughly, they're supposed to do the surface course. Most of the concrete has been completed. I'd say about 98%. There's still a couple out there. They have some pieces that they need to take out and redo, some bird bass and some wrong grades and those types of things. So, but generally it's moving towards completion. Some people are calling it the Mulberry Miracle.
Any idea when they'll start doing landscaping? I know they've done some of it, but not all of it.
They are probably, if it dries out at all here, they're gonna try and do it quickly before they get the second paving on, because they like to have all the dirt installed and a lot of that work done before they lay the surface course. But the asphalt contractor is driving all the activity right now, so. Street maintenance contracts, all the milling and the pulverizing is done. We're mainly into asphalt patches and sidewalk repairs. So you may see areas all over the city with portions of sidewalk or curb missing. They're also doing a lot of lead replacements right now, lead service lateral replacements for water. So they're digging up a lot of additional streets, so we're gonna see if we can get those paved yet.
Or what's our percentage of completion?
Well, right now, it's very low as far as asphalt patches and sidewalks.
I meant the lead replacement.
I'm going to shoot from the hip right now, trying to remember.
That's fine.
But I would say we have about 430 identified lead services, and we've replaced somewhere between 150 and 160. So we still have pretty sizable amount, over 300 out there.
That we know about. You actually said that some were discovered on Mulberry Street that looked like they had been completed but weren't?
Well, what happens is they pigtail in the house, so where it comes into the house at the floor, they cut the lead off and they make a copper attachment and bring it up into the house. So it looks like it's copper at the meter, but it's actually lead out to the street. Yeah, we found about 4 of those on Mulberry. We didn't find any on South Main, but we have found them on College and Fremont. So it's always a guess, but those are probably have been identified already because most of the streets have been dug up. So I'm sure we'll still find a couple, but not very substantial because they're all in a certain area. So like Lake Street, Fremont, College, Main, North and South, Mulberry, Grant, some of the older parts of Prospect on the west side, Reed, Franklin, those areas. Once you get outside of that, they're very limited. And so if you look, we've replaced all of East Lake Street. We've replaced South Main, North Main, Mulberry, Oak, portions of Oak and Washington. So you're now down to a portion of streets we replaced, like on Ferry. So, and then our if you know, reviewing the capital improvement plan, Lake Street's scheduled for 21. I think it's Fremont, either College or Fremont is in 22, and then we jump to Oak, and kind of following the worst lead lateral surface replacement stuff, so. And pavement conditions, try and combine them. The brush pickup will start tomorrow and run for a week, so if you want to get your brush picked up, this is the time to get it out. Wednesday through Wednesday. Sandy Beach, the archaeological survey was done. The report is being completed. Actually meet with the DNR on November 7th to review that report. Faville Walkway options are on the agenda tonight, and I gave you an extra one tonight, so keep that in hand. Library, I don't know if you've been to the library, but they graded up the backside, poured that sidewalk along the back, and they're getting ready to start asphalting. They poured the curb in the front and the apron. We might have to replace a piece of that because it looks like they might have gotten the curb tipped the wrong way. So if you see us tearing out a piece of curb at the front of the library, that's the problem. They also poured that apron at the Rock Lake Activity Center for the seniors. We met and discussed phosphorus compliance. You guys probably don't follow that real well, but we are under our current permit, we're required to do so much reporting on phosphorus compliance, and the one that we have to do this year is identify all the areas we could do phosphorus trading with. So that report was completed. Kevin did it. And so that's going to lead us to another report, which is for the same thing, which is going to be the facilities assessment, wastewater facilities assessment, and they all tie into our future permit and what levels, what total daily maximum levels of phosphorus and other pollutants we can discharge. Brookstone subdivision is moving along. They actually started building houses on Oak Brook. So final piece, I think they've poured the concrete and they're just waiting for the pavement. Should be done by the end of the week or the beginning of next week, depending on the weather. I don't know, has anyone been up on Tower Street? That's good.
Well, I was up there earlier, but that was a month ago or more.
They ran those services to the lots that are there now, so I think there are 4 vacant lots. So they ran the services, so we're getting ready to asphalt pave over those.
Oh, it's all torn up.
Yeah, so it's all tore up, and the lots are all regraded and everything. So,
Otherwise, no problem.
no. Well, I'm not gonna say that, there's always problems. It's getting them fixed that we're working on. So, any other questions?
Thanks, Steve. We'll move on to item 8, the acceptance of the minutes of the Police and Fire Commission of May 16th, 2019, and the Police and Fire Commission of August 15th, 2019. Will go on record as written. Move on to number 9, council business. A, could I get that name read, please, Misty?
We have one tavern operator's license for Danielle Westrich.
And do we have a motion of approval?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Let's call the roll, please.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-0.
Thank you. We go to item B, and this is the discussion decision on Faville Park Walkway. It's currently tabled, so we'll need a motion to remove it from the table.
So move.
Second.
And a vote, please.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-0.
All right, so it's off the table. And let's see what we got here. Could we read the title for that, Misty?
City Council Motion 19-10-2-1, approving a design concept for the Faville Park Walkway and authorizing the funding of the improvement.
Okay, so do we have a motion of adoption for this so we can do some discussion?
I move adoption of motion 1910-1.
We have a second?
Second.
All right, we can discuss this now. Let's, who wants to start with this one? Steve, do you want to?
Yeah, so we talked about it the last time, and there had been a proposed route that we discussed at the last meeting that came up from the south through the park and up to a playground area just off the parking lot. At that point in time, we discussed moving to an option that came in from either the east or the west along Tyrannina Park Road. So the initial one that you have on the your agenda is the complete route and the cost to go with it. And then the one I handed out tonight was just coming in from the east. From
Road
Mills.
is,
From Mills.
okay.
Um,
And how far does that go?
It goes to the, if you remember, there was a pad down, there was an asphalt pad that was constructed that comes from the parking lot down to the play lot. And then there was a sidewalk that was projected to run up to Tyrannina Park Road. And so it intersects right at that point.
So that would be like,
Right there.
Oh, okay.
Remember, there's this asphalt, and then here's the playground area, and then this walk comes up to there. It's from here
Okay.
up to East Mills Drive. That's the $25,000 one. The other one that's attached is the full construction all the way across. It's not quite an even, it shouldn't be quite an even, yeah, that one's 64,000. But if you remember,
That's to go all the way from Mills all the way down to Brewster.
all the way down to Brewster.
Gotcha.
And there was $20,000 that was available to the Parks Department.
Right.
So both of these kind of exceed that
Yeah.
by a little bit. And it would be constructed by this proposal is constructed by the street department.
Is
Except
there a
for-
lot of engineering involved?
The engineering is kind of done. They're gonna run at the curb line. Probably most of the engineering is on the far west end near Brewster. There's the one lot that comes up pretty good, and then there's a big drop off. There's a wooded area down there, and there's a big drop off. So there's a lot of fill that would have to go in there, and that would take more engineering work. But on the east half, it would not be as significant. But essentially, this would, either one of these proposals would at least slide it off until next spring.
And that's where the expense for doing the whole thing would be, as the west side is really expensive.
It's more expensive than the east end, yes. Because you have, that hole you have to fill in, and you have to compact it in layers, and you have to bring it, and then you have to run it out at the right slope, and you'd have to take out a bunch of trees.
It wouldn't save any money building a bridge there, would it?
No, a bridge is expensive, and it's a maintenance headache.
It looks like the more expensive one would benefit a lot more users of the park, though.
Absolutely, it's one of the, if you remember my memo on the 4 most important sidewalks in the city, this was one of them.
Yeah, because I know I mentioned, past meeting that I see a lot of folks pushing their baby carriages, walking their pets, things like that, and they're just right on the side of the road going from Brewster up to the parks. And, I see it's going to be a lot more than that once the families start moving into the apartments up across
Yes.
the end of Brewster and stuff like that, so.
Probably more from the west than the east.
Yeah.
Unless you get people coming from Aston.
And at this point, we couldn't do anything until springtime anyway.
We could do a simple one, so like the one that's coming up from the south end of the park, we could probably still squeeze that one in, but anything else like this, either one of these proposals, they would have to wait until the spring.
The south park, the south axis is still in here.
It shows it,
I wasn't sure whether it was taken out or in.
yeah, no, it shows it's still in there.
Okay.
And
So you can see that this was the one that was originally proposed, and that was what was budgeted and then already designed, ready to go.
Did they build any kind of berm to protect the homeowners to farther west? Or any kind of rise in elevation?
Actually, just exactly the opposite, Doug. Everything in these lots runs to the back property line,
Yeah,
and then they're supposed to run down to an inlet down here. The
and they,
the property owners have actually hurt themselves, because I'm not always crazy about the back lot line drainage systems, because the homeowners go in, they plant trees, they put in fences, they put in utility sheds, and what happens? They block all the drainage. And then they complain about the drainage doesn't go where it's supposed to go. Well, that's because you blocked it all. So Brookstone is one of the biggest nightmares in the area. But all subdivisions end up having that problem. At some point in time, everybody's built the fence, everybody's got those sheds, everybody's put in trees and shrubs. Most of them right over the top of the power lines. So, if we have to go in there and fix something, it's just gonna be,
So this is actually something that our proposal that we're sending back, we haven't got it back to your Parks Department yet. That's
No, we haven't met yet.
tomorrow, correct?
And actually, that meeting got postponed, our meeting tomorrow. The one that we did originally meet on the one going from Badger, south end going north, and what the Parks recommended, with Rob's input too, was to move that where it landed on Badger to the east a little bit, so it was on the east side of that storm drain. Kind of went up into the park and then wrapped over and connected, just so it would move over. And they figured too, it would help with people cutting the corner on a gentleman's yard right there.
Would that, though, interfere with the drainage coming
No.
down?
no, that was done to enhance the drainage.
Well, I mean, if the thing went east of
The
it?
sidewalk, no.
Yeah, no, it would all drain.
Yep.
It's supposed to drain down the back of their property lines. So the sidewalk, as long as it's at grade, shouldn't have any impact.
Right.
And now that he's proposed to move it to the east a little bit there, it has less.
What about finances?
We budgeted this one here, and it's already all contracted up and ready to go. We could do that. Hopefully. I mean,
What about the other part?
no, we couldn't get that done this year.
So if that money's not spent, it can sit in an account and wait. And,
Same as every year at December. Betsy
Yeah.
brings you a motion, we hold cash over to the next year.
yeah, because I would like to see what the Parks Department says about putting in the full sidewalk up on the roadway there instead of pushing this through. I just think it would be a better use of the funds than paving back behind the houses. That's just me. That's just my 2 cents worth in it. But
You're
with that
saying,
being,
are you saying eliminate the southward?
right, yeah, that's why we tabled it, because I don't think there's just a humongous need to have that sidewalk running through the park back behind those folks' houses. I would rather see the money spent out on Tyrannina Road to have those.
However, I will say this, in watching a sidewalk come in, when it comes in, people use it where it's there.
Yeah.
It generates its own demand, well, its own attraction. So
But if
there-
we had to do one or the other, I think the one that would benefit more people would, even though it costs more, I think in the long run would be better.
It's more of a
I think so
safety
too,
item.
more of a
Yeah.
safety thing than the other one would be.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Can we phase it?
well, I'm sure we could, and that's what Steve had recommended with the $25,000 spend would be the east half of it, get that done, and then work on the west half later on.
I was worried that with the change and not being in the contract, we wouldn't be able to get it done, because now we're depending more on street crews to do the work, and
Yeah,
they're gonna be busy this fall, they got leaves and brush, and
I honestly, I don't think it has to be something that's done right away. If it waits till the spring, it shouldn't be a big issue, but I would like to have the input from the Parks Department after we talked about this and see what their thoughts are before we go ahead and make a decision.
Is from Tyrannina, is that used for sledding at all?
They do
Their
sled
kids
in
sled
there,
there.
but I don't think
the sidewalk wouldn't interfere with it.
Well, I'm not worried about the sidewalk, I'm just thinking about this winter.
Yeah, they do.
There's a pretty nice slope right there.
Yeah, if I remember right.
So
I
my
believe
thoughts, I'm sorry, go ahead,
As I say, I
Steve.
believe the intent of this, from Badger North, that new sidewalk proposed, that would not be shoveled in the wintertime.
Yes. The other one is gonna have to be.
Gonna have to be, yeah.
So there'd be some additional maintenance on that one.
Yep. But it makes sense to me to take and finish Tavern as
Right.
well as have the access through the park.
Right.
But I agree, Tavern is priority.
I would think so. So my thoughts would be that we would table this again until you have a chance to talk with the Parks Department, and then you bring those recommendations back and we make a decision from there. Does
Okay.
that sound like is there any reason why we need to make any decision right now on this?
Right now, no, other than to send it to Parks.
Yeah.
The only,
that's
the only issue that I would change the timeline for me would be, and it still wouldn't move it up that far, is if we do the special assessments, because there's a special assessment here and a special assessment there.
Yeah,
Because then we got to go through the whole notice and public hearing stuff. That changes the timeline for me from just getting a crew and concrete people out there to,
yeah, and I'm not expecting us to be pushing forward to have something done until spring. So if that's the case,
yeah, but even if it was spring, we'd have to start doing the notices in January.
yeah, and once we get it back from the Parks Department, we should be able to act on it pretty quick.
Would you have to modify the 2020 budget if we went with the one on V?
I'll talk to Dwayne. We haven't tightened up the maintenance budget yet. We usually wait until sometime in the spring when we're doing an evaluation coming out as to what streets are gonna be the prime ones. We give the Public Works Board a list of the ones that are the most likely, but we don't actually do that until then, so we could throw some of that at the sidewalk. But I'll talk to him.
No grants possible.
No, not for us.
All right, with that being said, I would entertain a motion to table this.
So moved.
All
Second.
right, let's call that vote, please.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-0.
That moves us on to item C, Resolution 1949, Sewer User Charge Adjustment. Could I get that title read, please?
Resolution 19-49, authorizing the city manager and staff to take actions necessary to implement the sewer user charge adjustments.
All right, do we have a motion for this?
I move adoption of resolution 1949.
Second.
All right, we are in discussion. I don't think we talked about this in the past, have we?
We have not.
What do you have for us, Steve?
The sewer was a large part of the debt for Mulberry and South Main. And as part of you remember approving the Ellers report for rates. The way we historically do it is, once we have those projects installed and we know what our debt's gonna be, we come back with a new rate to cover those costs. We use Strand and Kevin to do that study for us. It's not a Public Service Commission deal, so it's not like water or electric. So he came back, did the analysis on the facilities assessment and the debt that we have, and made a recommendation on a rate. Went to Public Works Board. They reviewed it. They asked Kevin to make some changes in it. So there was an August report and then the September 25th report. They modified it. was similar to the water one. I don't know if you remember a couple years ago, Public Service Commission asked us to put more on the facilities charge than the variable rate. And that was because there'd been so much drop in the water use that in order to be able to compensate and meet consistent debt and operations needs, they recommended going that way. And Kevin kind of did the same thing with the sewer. The Public Works Board wanted to opt to go more back to the variable rate. The one thing about sewer and water is they use the exact same meter. So if your water use is going down, your sewer use is going down. But the analysis and the change they made such a small difference in the overall amount. We as staff felt that there was a satisfactory recommendation, and we would support it as it came forward to council. So Public Works Board has made a recommendation to have a increase. If you want to ask anything about the increase, Kevin is here. He can do a full presentation, or he can just answer questions for you, whatever you desire. It doesn't require you to do anything. He's staff, he can do the report. So if you want him to do anything, he's available.
Yeah, might as well come on up and give us your 2 cents worth on this.
Thank you. As Steve mentioned, the first analysis we did was geared towards increasing the fixed charge or the meter charge more than the volume charge. And so we were asked to redo that just to make the increase between the fixed and the volume charge a little more even. The net result is for a quote-unquote typical residential users, about a $2 increase per month with either method that was used, so that the net increase was the same regardless of how we came about it.
So do you think with the newer meter things that are in place now, as far as electronic reading of them, it's going to assist with some of this, that maybe we wouldn't have to raise the rates?
At this point in time, I would say no. What we know now is that we're more accurate on the lower use. And so the need for a rate increase combined with the new debt that we brought in from the South Main and Mulberry Streets, that this one definitely will be needed. We keep an eye on it and do some analysis on it in the future, but I don't think it's going to impact rates as much as it is helping people determine how their use is being used, particularly in electric.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you hear a lot of people complaining about we raised the rates. We didn't raise the rates. The rates are variable depending on your use. And so if you can control your use, you can control your monthly costs.
We also worked on some averages though too, before we had these new meters in there also, correct? If we couldn't go read them, or a meter was missed for whatever reason, we worked on.
There are a lot of issues with meters. The meter reader has to be on a regular schedule. So since we have one meter reader, she ranges from 25 days in a cycle to 35, 37 days in a cycle. So if you're looking at your bill one month and you're saying, wow, it's huge, look at the number of days.
Right.
Or if it's small, look at the number of days. If there was some reason why we didn't get out and read it in that time period at all, it might have been averaged. So you might get an average bill for one month and then come back at the next month and and have an actual reading, so that might be something that's involved in it. Meter reading is a very unique study all its own. Because the billing cycles, the meter reading cycles, and the water reporting cycles, none of them match up.
Right.
So you got this one time period where you got water, you got this one time period where you got your meter reading, and then you got this time period where you actually are billing. And so if you're trying to match them all up, they never actually give you a precise answer. So it's always a kind of a shot in the dark. I should say that. We're within 97%. So it shouldn't be a shot, I shouldn't say it's a shot in the dark.
Right.
But it's never as accurate as 100% because you just can't match them up. So
But it'll be much better with the new meters.
the new meters, well, you're guaranteed a precise cycle
Right.
because you don't have to read it. It sends it in automatically. So unless there's some type of electric failure, mechanical failure, it's going to read. So, and you don't even have to, if someone moves out and they tell you to read their meter, you don't have to go there. You just
Right.
have it read the meter, have it send a signal. So from that standpoint, the meter reading becomes much more consistent. The newer meters should be as accurate as possible. None of them are real bad, but these will be as accurate as possible, so you'll know exactly what you're doing. If you want to know how you're using your electricity, you could call up and find out really easy. And then you can use that if you want to control your electric rates. You're more than capable of doing it through that process. The sewer rates, not as much. You're going to find out, that the vast majority of the water goes early in the morning and late in the evening.
Right.
That's what you're going to know. How you control it. I mean, even with these sewer and water rates, the two combined are still pennies on the dollar for a gallon of water. They're not even pennies. They're less than pennies on a dollar for a gallon of water. When you go out and buy a bottle of water for $1.50, that's not even a gallon. So if you're willing to pay $1.50 out there, but you're worried about the half of a cent that you're paying for water and sewer, it's not matching up right.
Okay. I don't have any other questions for you. You got right to the point of what we could expect for an average home, $2 a month. So that's one of the questions that we would have had.
Sure.
So anybody else have any other questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry you had to wait around all that time for
It's
that.
all right. It's entertaining. Thanks.
All right, so is there anything else anybody wants to bring up before we vote on this? All right, let's call a vote.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-0.
All right. We moved on to item D, ordinance 1206A. Could I get that title read, please?
Ordinance 1206A, amending City of Lake Mills Ordinance Section 615-15, no parking zones, City of Lake Mills, Wisconsin.
And this is the third reading. Can I get a motion for adoption?
I move adoption of ordinance 1206A.
Second.
All right. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this? Is this the one we have in our packet isn't the final fully written one, is it?
I thought that it was. 1206A the last change was to include Catlin.
Okay, but you still have the markups in here for,
Yeah, he left the markups in, so you'd know.
okay, perfect.
So
Nope, that's fine.
there's two maps. There's the memo and then the Catlin map was included last council meeting and this one.
Right. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, we'll call the vote, please.
Mr. Foster?
Aye.
Mr. Fritsch?
Aye.
Ms. Schmidt?
Aye.
Mr. Fields?
Aye.
Motion passed 4-0.
All right, the rest of these will be second readings, and I'm told there's no reason to move any of them ahead, even though we have some information. So, let's go ahead and, on item E, let's read the title on that, please.
Ordinance 1207, an ordinance annexing territory to the city of Lake Mills, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, parcel identification number 018-0713-2423-003.
In the second reading, unless anybody has any comments that they want to make or questions, we'll move this on to the third reading. Item F, could I get that read, please?
Ordinance 1208, 2020 general government budget and tax levy ordinance.
All right, we had a good meeting on that today. And if there's nothing anybody has questions on, we'll move that on to the third reading. We do have a scheduled third budget meeting potentially on November 5th. Is that what it was, Vicki?
Yep.
That may happen, it may not happen, but it's scheduled right now, so. All right, we'll move that one on to the third reading. Let's go to item G. Could you please read that for me, Misty?
Ordinance 1209A, 2020 capital budget.
And this is the second reading for this one also. We had a budget session before this meeting that was open to the public. And we do have another one scheduled for November 5th also for this. Unless there's any questions or comments, we'll move that on to Steve.
It's 1209A.
Yep.
I don't know if you realized why, but in the original budget, I still had the 18 numbers in instead of the 19 for the history. All the 20 numbers were right.
Right.
So, but we still made it an A because we did actually change the numbers in a portion of it. So even though
Okay.
it didn't affect the 20 numbers, it did affect the numbers in the ordinance, so.
Okay, nope, that makes sense then. Thank you for clarifying that. Is there anything else?
No.
All right, we're going to move that on to the third reading. And that brings us up to item 10, recommendations for future agendas. Other than the potential meetings for the budget, we also have our information that's due to the council president very soon for the review for Mr. Wilkie. I don't know if there's anything else that we have right now that we know that's going to go on the next agenda.
I just have one question, I was thinking about it during the budget. Have you come across anything, any future projections for the future that may cause, like I was talking about the salt and the, as an example, but like for the electric utility, where we're going to have a problem like we had a number of years ago where everything shut down and we had kind of a worrisome summer over whether we were going to have enough power or anything. Anything like that that's come across?
No, the utilities are fine. Probably the biggest question in utilities is when our next permit comes up, sewer would have some issues. We are getting gold stars now for water, so from the DNR, they're happy with us. The only, there's a lot of projections about the economic future and whether there's going to be a recession or not. So I would anticipate that there will be one. How severe and how long depends on what kind of impacts there were, in the last one. The housing market made it far worse than it needed to be. Normally, we kind of skid through a recession because we're so slow and behind and we're already on levy limits. It's not a huge deal to us. The last one with the housing crash, that was a huge one.
Are we going to have a housing shortage?
Well, every document that I've read, it says Wisconsin's in a housing shortage, a significant housing shortage. And we've reported that we've worked hard with Brookstone and the South Side, and we have a workforce housing report coming up, and we're always watching that. That's a significant issue nationwide, though, and Wisconsin's leading the way in it being a significant problem.
So right now, make a long story short, you see things as being fairly okay.
I see it as being stable, at least in the local. That's all I pay attention to.
Excuse me.
Especially in Wisconsin, we're so tax base oriented, and the tax base moves so slowly that it doesn't have the type of impact. If we were a sales tax or an income tax based community, we may look at it a lot different. Also, with the amount of unreserved fund balance we have, I don't sweat the ups and downs that much. We also have plans in place to keep ourselves contracted and city employees balanced out so that, the contracts can drop off and we can drop our costs pretty significantly without having to do a lot of layoffs. And so we make a lot of plans for being able to be flexible.
And you don't see any problems with WPPI or?
No, WPPI's new report just came out, and they were really tooting our horn about how strong they were as far as being able to have a supply at a low cost. For a long time, they were projecting some pretty significant increases in the next few years, and those have gone by the wayside even, so I'm pretty comfortable.
Okay.
All right. Well, if that's it, then we are adjourned.